All right, welcome everybody around the world. Welcome to all my subscribers. Oh, mic test, mic test. It looks like we're all right. So, this video here today, this will be heavily related to the video I made the other day. I'll be using the same list of quotes to refer to, but nonetheless, the other day I was reading through all of the quotes, all 60 of them, and I didn't really have time to interject. So, what I wanted to do today was show everybody that quite simply, the Bible told us from day one the very extraterrestrial scenario that the world is facing and talking about and keeping secret right now. So, and quite literally, everything, all the major concepts in UFOlogy, any aspect you could think of, everything is spoken about and talked about in the Bible, which means it was written about 2 to 3,000 years ago, depending if you're looking at Old or New Testament. And I think that's working too, by the way, chicken fried. I think I noticed. Um, so it's very important to understand this because, I mean, you really have to stop and think. I mean, we all act today like these are the latest revelations. And for us, in a sense, they are because we're relying on these credible whistleblowers to come out and testify things. But at the end of the day, the amazing thing is that the Bible actually told us all about this from day one. So I'll just tell everybody what the Bible reveals about this extraterrestrial history and current scenario with Earth in just a few minutes. I'll try to paint an illustrative description of what it told us. Okay, and then for proof, I can refer to certain verses if needed where it mentions such. Okay, the people who aren't familiar with the Bible might think, oh, these are outlandish claims, you're just an over religious person. But no. So what the Bible told us is that humankind, it actually does reveal, and bear with me, right? But humankind is not actually from this earth. We're actually from somewhere else, okay? And that we were born here as these mortal humans, okay? We're put into this life here, and we live a life here on this planet. There's a verse that says we are strangers and sojourners upon this earth. And even Jesus said in the book of John that we are not of this earth, as he is not of this earth. And Jesus said many places he came from above, he came from elsewhere. So we're sojourners upon this earth. We're here right now, we're born here, but we're actually from somewhere else. Where would that somewhere else be? Well, it would be another planet. Okay? And it could very well be, maybe, I'm just throwing ideas out there, maybe millions or billions of years ago, some of us lived on another planet, like maybe Mars, when it was inhabitable. And maybe from whatever shift or change or cataclysm that ended. And at some point along the line, some of those people ended up here. Okay, just throwing out an idea. I'm not saying it has to be Mars or anything, right? But to that effect. Okay, and Earth would actually be a prison planet, right? That's why all the suffering happens here, and any fallen angels are bound here. So, anyways, humankind came from elsewhere to start with. Okay, this Earth was created along with the cosmos, the universe full of stars, and obviously other planets. The Bible says it's full of life, intelligent life, and the intelligent life can serve God. They're very powerful beings as well. They're called messengers. So, what the Bible describes as angels, the true word in Greek or Hebrew is messenger. And it doesn't mean a human with bird wings plucking a harp flying around on clouds. What it actually means is it could look like anything. Even a donkey acted as a messenger in the Bible. Anything could be a messenger. It just depends if it's acting as a messenger. Right now, up in the heavens of outer space, you have all those stars. Those beings live on those worlds. Right? They're not allowed to interact with our Earth. Certain angels, watchers, messengers, were appointed to watch over this earth. Okay? The Bible even says that at the creation of our planet, okay, and at the creation of man on this planet, meaning when the mortal bodies were created and all of that, for the original man and all of that, that the angels, the messengers, were there watching. So the Bible's revealed, okay, that the universe is full of intelligent life, intelligent to the point where it could serve God or even rebel against God, and that some of these beings, were there as observers in the creation of the planet and the creation of man, okay? And that some of them were appointed by God to watch over man as watchers, and to even govern over man on the earth as lords, as the Baalim. And over time, people ended up worshiping these star god beings, and they were punished for this. Both the beings and the peoples were punished for this. And that was one of the primary causes for idolatry in the Bible, was the worship of these star beings. But nonetheless, going back to the start here, we have the story of Eden. Okay, now we know that Satan can walk the earth, he could fly up into outer space for thousands of years, all the way up until where we get to in Revelation 12, where it says that when Jesus died, he was died because Satan helped put him to death, right? And when Jesus died, he rose up afterwards, the resurrection. He ascended back up into the heavens, back up into space. And up there with the other archangels, these other mighty beings, they did battle against Satan, and they cast Satan and all of his supporters out of the heavens, and they bound them to this planet. The reason they did that was because those beings had broken the law of non-interference with this planet. Okay, the watchers who are, and this gleans over into, if that's the right word, this also leans over into the book of First Enoch, right? But this is the biblical knowledge that's supplied. So we had watchers appointed over during the creation, okay, and they were appointed over to govern over the peoples as well. Okay, but there was also a law of non-interference. Okay, and what happened was is that some of those watchers decided to break the rule of non-interference. They wanted to take human wives, and they did that. Okay, that's what the Sumerian religions talk about, book of First Enoch, even the Bible, they testify to that. So these beings broke that law, and when they interbred, it had a disastrous result. Because these beings, some of them or all of them looked human, or in some way the genes were compatible, or maybe they used technology to do the interbreeding. Nonetheless, however it happened, when these beings interbred with the humans, they bore hybrids, and these hybrids weren't always human looking. Sometimes they're monstrous or huge, or they look like they're a combination of bizarre different creatures. So these monstrous deformities of nature, and these monstrous abominations would often fight against the gods. And you see the same template in all the world religions, like Greco-Roman mythology, Norse Scandinavian. It's all the same type of thing. When Uranus came down to Gaia, Uranus, slept with Gaia and bore these monstrosities and so forth, right? The Bible talks about it too. These are the fallen angels. Okay, in Sumeria, they're called the Anunnaki. They were worshipped. Okay, in the Bible perspective, they were not to be worshipped. Okay, and they were the fallen angels. First Enoch says that besides the sin of taking human wives and begetting these forbidden offspring, that they also broke all these rules and taught mankind all these arts and sciences and technologies, especially things to be used for in war. Okay, and things that may not be evil within themselves. There's just knowledge, but humankind wasn't ready for it, and they may have actually taught them in a malicious way, like, hey, this is how you can make weapons to destroy one another, right, or to conquer nations. So because the extraterrestrials, the naughty ones, did that, that's why they are bound to this earth. They interfered on this planet. Skeptics might wonder, why is it always this earth? Why is Satan on this earth? So what does Satan look like? Well, Satan is most likely a Nahash. Now, in the Eden story, it was Nahash in the Hebrew. And if you listen to any rabbi teach on this, it wasn't a normal snake. A Nahash was a humanoid serpent-type reptilian being. It had arms and legs, stood upright, and spoke, and it was more intelligent and powerful than humans were. Even the Bible says this. So it's the most subtle, the most cunning creature of God's creation. And that's what Satan was, most likely. Okay, either that or he was a fully human-looking type being. But anyways, it's probably most likely that he was specifically that Nahash from Eden. He's referred to as the dragon, the serpent, the ancient serpent, even in the New Testament as well. So it's fair to say. And in the Dead Sea Scroll text, he's Melchizedek, the dark one, who has a visage of a viper, okay, despite also looking human. Okay, we see strong parallels to this with the Nagas of Cambodia, India. Well, all those other cultures came originally from India, the religious culture, with the reptilian humans. Okay, we see the same thing with reptilian humans and the same type of pyramids over in the rest of the world, in Africa with Egypt and all of that. India, like I said, going further east with the Pacific Islands and this and that there, and heading west over to the Americas, you have the same temples and reptilian being gods and this and that there. Okay, and these reptilian beings are very, very powerful. And in UFOlogy, the lore is that reptilians are like the highest echelon, in the food chain, in the pecking order, and that these reptilians have supreme telepathic abilities, and they're also roughly around 7 feet tall or whatever. So there's all this lore, but the Bible spoke about it first. Okay, so he was the Nahash in Eden, and being the most subtle and cunning of the field. That's not saying he had telepathy, but when you get into the New Testament text, it reveals that Satan and his messengers have the ability to transform their appearance. Okay, so whether they're literal physical shapeshifters or they're using technology like a hologram or false projection to fool the person, or whether they have a technology where they can tinker with the observer's mind and they see a false image, a wide range of things it could be. But the Bible, the New Testament, warned us about this. Again, this is something we see in UFOlogy, that the reptilians possess these abilities, the ability to shapeshift, to pose as a person. What do you know? The Bible told us about this, right? So, and the lore in UFOlogy is that reptilians are basically from Earth. They've been here for a very long time. Again, this is what the Bible has said from Eden, from day one. The Nahash was here, okay? And the Nahash was extremely intelligent. So, and obviously very powerful, because I mean, look how powerful Satan is, right? So, and not only that, but also very influential. So, the Bible has revealed a reptilian race that is basically top of the pecking order. I mean, it's headed by Satan himself, right? So the Bible is agreeing with what UFOlogy is talking about nowadays. UFOlogy also talks about human-looking aliens that look very human. Now, in the universe, there's probably endless forms of life, but the ones that appear to be coming to Earth the most, based on testimonies and such, appear to be humans, which are usually claimed to be the Pleiadians or whatever. Okay, but they look like 100% human, very, very little difference, some slight difference. You have the grays, which come in a few different forms, and you have the reptilians. I mean, these are the basic three that occur in like 95% of all testimonies or stories or anything. Okay, and the Bible talks about these ones. The reptilians, like I said, countless other mentions of the messengers appearing to people in the Bible. They look human. There's even a verse where it says, "You be careful who you entertain, because you may have entertained an angel, a messenger." And that's another allusion to the fact that they can look human. When the messengers came to Abraham and Lot when they were in Sodom, they looked human. Okay, so many other cases like this, they can look human but slightly different. We see this in the book of Daniel, where a blue-skinned human with fantastic golden-looking armor appeared to him. That was one of the famous angel stories from the book of Daniel. And he said his body was blue. So again, that lines up with UFOlogy testimony that there is indeed a race of blue-skinned humans that have visited the Earth. So again, all these little obscure details from the Bible line up. We also have the basic description of UFO. Most UFOs are a wheel shape. And we have the classic example, Ezekiel's wheels. He even describes how they fly. He says that they have a pilot. It's piloted by a living creature, he says. The pilot pilots it from the center, okay, and it looks like a wheel laying flat on its side, and that when it flies, it rises up flat in that position and flies in that position. That's how Ezekiel describes it. And it says all around the rim were these eyes, or light-emitting eyes, where they emitted light, and that when it came to land on the Earth, or when it crashed or whatever it was, all this smoke and fire and tumult and noise was around it. So it's 100% matching the description of almost all UFOs that are seen today. You also have the example, which is often cited, where I think it was Zechariah saw the flying scroll. Like, what is this? Look up into the sky and tell me what you see. And he looks up and he sees like essentially a flying cylinder. And he says, what is this? And the angel tells him this is the scourge that goes over the land, essentially, I guess, punishing people. Okay, so watchers, right? So it's described two of the most famous shapes of UFOs that we see today. The only one it left out was spheres. But we could get into arguments because it talks about in the New Testament, a great light appeared in the heaven. It didn't say it was in the shape of a square. So we can only assume if a light appears, it's going to be a big circle. And then you could argue, well, that was a spherical UFO. But you know what I mean? We're just picking straws here. The basic shape UFOs is all there in the Bible as well. Okay. The behavior of UFOs is all there in the Bible. You have the light in the heavens in outer space guiding the people to the baby Jesus. This light would move with the people. It would stop. It would shine light down on them. Okay, and when they arrived at the baby Jesus, a whole bunch of the heavenly hosts teleported in to celebrate. And when they were done, they departed back up into the heavens. Okay, there's many cases in the book of Judges, for example. It talks about a battle taking place between the heavens and the earth. And it says that the stars from their highways in the heavens fought against the kings of the land, which is King Sisera. Okay, and it also says, cursed be Meroz, because they didn't come to aid. Meroz in Jewish literature is a star. It's not a place on this earth. So God must have called on these inhabitants of another star system to, hey, come and help fight this battle here. And they didn't, so they were punished for it. Very, very interesting stuff. Another verse says that God apportioned all the nations of man according to the 70 sons of God. Okay, these would have been the Baalim. And after people started worshiping them, there's a verse in the Bible where God says, you know, enough of this. I no longer want to hear the word Baal or Baalim come out of your mouths anymore. And you are to call me Ishi, because Baal meant Lord in Hebrew, and in, I think, Sumerian possibly as well, or but whatever, Babylonian. But maybe Babylonian. But Baal meant Lord in Hebrew, right? So at the point where they were worshiping the lords, and they had like every city had its god because they were worshiping their watcher overseers, because they would see them interact on times and be smitten by their magnificent power, and they started worshiping them, right? And then the vain ones liked being worshipped, and then all of this begat that great change. And if we look back in human history, we can see all these ancient cultures worship these star gods. Okay, they thrived. They appeared to come out of nowhere with this great, you know, knowledge and how to build big temples and all of this. Egypt, the Americas, India, everywhere you look, it's like around the equator. They all built these gigantic sun temples, and they, in some form, encompassed reptilian beings or gods into their pantheon. Okay, and that's the common trait you see, right? So this is what the Bible told us was taking place here. Okay, so the other thing that it tells us is that there is interaction between extraterrestrials and humans. Many interactions, some of which I've already stated, like Abraham when the messengers came there, when some of the watchers broke the laws and interbred with humans and taught them forbidden arts and all of that. There's also cases in the Bible where the angels will come to give prophecies to people. God would send some of the angels to destroy nations or armies. And in one case, I think it might have been the Assyrians possibly, the angel of the Lord came down and drew his sword. And the way they described it as a sword, but if you think about it, this is a being that's said to be coming down from the heavens, which is where the sun, moon, and stars are. It's outer space, biblically. And it's coming down from outer space. And then they see this great, like, fiery pillar of sword shooting down and destroys like 100,000 people in one go. You know what I mean? So when you're looking at all the interactions with angels in the Bible, you'll see that angels either watch or punish or redeem. That's what they do. They're not allowed to interact and interfere in other ways. Okay, ever since God made that change. So, and after Satan, the Nahash, and his minions were cast down to the earth. The Bible doesn't specify when this happened. It's just that it happened after Jesus resurrected and ascended, which is any time after 26 AD. Could have been hundreds of years later, for all we know. We don't know for sure. But nonetheless, when it did occur, it was said that they're not allowed to be up in the heavens anymore. So Satan and his minions were bound here. So I would imagine that some of the watchers are in charge of keeping Satan and his minions down here. But it goes further by specifying that Satan and his minions are bound within the earth. Okay, and I have some verses that I'll get to when I get to this to verify all this. So in ufology, the reptilians have been on Earth for a very long time, like I was saying earlier. Some people even speculate they evolved from dinosaurs or whatever. Now, they could actually, if they are Nahash, they could actually be part of this natural Earth evolution. I believe the 7 days of creation very well could have just been, 6 billion years, 7 billion years, or whatever, right? But they could actually be Earth based. They could be. Or they could actually be extraterrestrial and we're bound here. In either case, the Bible says that they're underground. Okay, Old and New Testament attest to the fact that they are underground. Them and their offspring are underground. Okay, the flood was sent to wipe out the remnants of their forbidden offspring off the earth. However, afterwards, they ended up returning and flourishing again. Okay, and that's when people were worshiping the star gods at that point there. And at some point, I can't remember offhand when, maybe around 1300 BC or so, is where God made the change, or between 1300 and like 1000 BC or so, God made that change and said, I'm cutting out the rule of these 70 Baalim over the earth. Okay, Isaiah 24 talks about this. It says that he will gather together the 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 host of the high place from the high place, and the kings of the land will put them in a pit which is under the ground and keep them there until the end of days. This is also a tie-over reference to what First Enoch talks about famously, and what the New Testament talks about famously in Jude and Second Peter, that these fallen angels were imprisoned within the earth. Enoch specifies under the mountains, underground, okay, presumably in caverns. So ufology says that these reptilians, the Greys, and even the Pleiadian types, they have bases underground, that they're living underground. This is what the Bible told us thousands of years ago. Like, even the New Testament is 2,000 years old, right? If you want to throw in the Old Testament, it's only going to go up to 3,000 years old. 2,000 is long enough. We were told this a long time ago, okay? A very long time ago. And what are some of the other things that we're told? We're even told how people can be taken by messengers. We're told that during the rapture, people's bodies will be translated and they'll be risen up into the air. When Jesus, after he had resurrected, how did he ascend up into the air? It says in the cloud. And it says, like this, he will return. Now, Jesus either stood in a cloud, which would be a little bit ridiculous, like Narnia, and floated up, or a cloud is a metaphor for something. If we stop and look at the Exodus, for example, it says that this cloud and a pillar of fire led them out on the Exodus. Now, UFOs are almost always white, gray, silver, or dark, which all the cloud colors, right? They're usually always round. Not all clouds are perfectly round, but cloud would be an appropriate metaphor for an ancient person to call UFO when they don't know what it is. But what they had in the Exodus, and even says in the New Testament, that it was messengers who guided them through the wilderness, and that it was by messengers they received the law, which is by extraterrestrials, okay, the watchers, the protectors. And it was a large cloud that, again, moved with the people, shining down a pillar of fire. Fire is plasma, okay? And it's more likely they're shooting down a pillar of plasma, let's say, than actual fire, because fire would be hot and would burn everything in its path as well, right? No need for all that. You can get the light and all the goodness just from plasma, and fire is plasma, you know what I mean? It's just, and plasma's still hot, but whatever it was a cloud moving along with the people. It would stop with the people, provide them shade and shelter. Okay, now it would provide them light at night. Now, come on now, right? And when it stopped at Mount Sinai, it parked over the mountain. Okay, and if anybody went up on the mountain, they were destroyed by some force. And God's voice emanated out from the cloud. Okay, so you start piecing all the things together here, it's quite clear. Okay, it says in the Bible that God's throne is in the heavens. Okay, amidst the stars of the north. Okay, Jesus, the angels, it's all so down to earth that you can't even understand. That's the reality of it. It's not limiting God. I mean, God can do whatever he wants, right? He's greater than this universe. But the Bible told us, if you want to call yourself a Bible believer, the Bible told us that he dwells in the heavens. Jesus said, my Father who is in the heavens. Okay, there's tons of verses that say God is in the heavens. I'm sure he could go outside the universe if he wanted, but I'm just going by what it tells us. So, extraterrestrial interaction, we also have Enoch, for example, and Elijah. They were taken up. Elijah was taken up in a cloud. Okay, Enoch was just translated and disappeared. We're told in the New Testament that at the end of days that the messengers will arrive and that the worthy will be translated. So our mortal body will be translated. That requires magic or technology. In either case, um, and some beings might actually just have actual powers. It's not necessarily like sorcery magic. You know what I mean? It's just like a magical ability, a miraculous power that they have by nature, possibly. I don't know. However, it happens, it says that our bodies are going to be translated. Even in UFOlogy, a lot of people talk about stuff like this, right? But yet the Bible spoke about it. And it says it will be lifted up into the air and be taken off to the New Jerusalem, which will be brought down from the heavens over the earth, and will go off to be on a new earth, a new planet. Okay, so the Bible told us that. So the Bible revealed all of this great cosmic story that it's humankind versus the reptilians, essentially. It's not versus reptilians like species based, but it's just that Satan and some of his minions are Nahash, which are reptilian, right? And because it's us against him, in a sense, that's why you know. But strictly speaking, it's not human versus reptilians, like exclusively, right? But it is humans versus reptilians, but it's also humans versus others as well. In the book of Revelation, it talks about these unclean spirits, which look like frogs. This could very well be the Greys. I mean, it doesn't have to be, but it could very well be the Greys. It says they go around doing signs to the leaders of the world, doing signs to lead them astray. And what did the Greys do? They offered technology and all of this. And the Greys allegedly tried to convince people in the military and such that they created mankind. So, and they're allegedly partly amphibian in nature or something like amphibian. So again, we have this illusion that in the end of days, that these unclean ones will come out tempting world leaders and the like. And that did come true with the Greys. They showed up around 1948. And again, like I talked about in my book that's available on Amazon, the end of days with the prophecy of Daniel and the year 1948 being so key to all of that. 1948 was the rebirth of Israel. It was also the year they found the Dead Sea Scrolls. That was 1947. But it was also the years that the UFOs started showing up, majorly speaking. Okay, so if we cross-reference this to the Bible, it's just history repeating itself. The fallen angels who are bound here within the earth, okay, their sentence was due up in 1948. I've got it in chapter 2 of my book. Okay, in the prophecy from First Enoch, it says that 500 years before the flood is to be given the measure for 4,900 years, that these fallen ones would be imprisoned within the earth underground. That sentence ends 1948, 1949. It's ended. And what happened at this point in history? Well, the UFOs started showing up. We got all this technology, and they're trying to corrupt us with blah, 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 teach their own. So it's the exact same thing that we saw with First Enoch, the same story of the fallen angels, the same ones repeating itself, history repeating itself. And it's just further evidence that we are definitely in the end times. And the end itself is quickly approaching. And the end itself is a destruction by meteors that God talks about. The heavens will be burning up with flame. The stars and everything will look like they're going into chaos. All these meteors and rocks will be hitting the earth. Great destruction. So that's what it talks about. So there's nothing new under the sun. I think I've pretty much covered most of the topics, but virtually anything you can think of in UFOlogy that is either just a common belief or specifically leaked by whistleblowers, it all is lifted from the pages of the Bible. There's nothing new. And the very fact that people nowadays believe that extraterrestrials have commonly telepathy, and that telepathy, because it's so powerful, if you were evil inclined and you had telepathy, you could influence, or if you had technology and you're super advanced, you could influence humans to do bad things. Now, for the last 2,000 years before we had higher technology, it just sounded like churchy nonsense that, spirit demon beings are floating around invisible to us and putting curses on us and all this and that there. And people were very superstitious and all of this. At the end of the day, it's real the thing that is real is that extraterrestrials are real. Extraterrestrials, most of them have telepathy. And some of these ones, like the bad ones, use their telepathy and their technology and or to manipulate humans. And this, again, is what the Bible warned us about, that Satan and his minions are out there walking around like hungry lions looking for whom they can prey upon, right? So it's not churchy, fluffy nonsense. The fact is, the Bible told us the raw truth right up front. So these beings were underground. They are centered underground, but allegedly their time to be released was 1948. Now, the chieftains of them are not to be released until the day Jesus arrives. When Jesus arrives, which is at the final trumpet, okay, and the resurrection occurs, but it's at the fifth and the sixth trumpet that the chieftains are let out. Okay, so they arrive the day that Jesus arrives, just before Jesus arrives. So the biggest and the worst ones and the most powerful ones haven't been released yet. It's just the little minions got released in 1948. And the bad UFOs, the bad extraterrestrials have been going around doing whatever bad stuff people allege they've been doing. That's what's happening. It was all told to us, foretold in the Bible, and amazingly came to pass in the right year as well. So let me see if I can read some of these comments real quick. Right. So I think I've pretty much covered everything I need to in these 30 minutes. I don't want to keep going on and making 45-minute long videos, but let's just read a few verses very, very quickly here. If we go to Isaiah 24:21, it says, "And it has come to pass in that day, God layeth a charge on the host of the high place in the high place." These are the fallen angels who have been disobedient, "and on the kings of the land on the land. And they've been gathered, a gathering of bound ones in a pit, and shut up they have been in a prison, and after a multitude of days are inspected." That's a direct reference to Enoch's prophecy. And it says, "And confounded has been the moon, and ashamed has been the sun." This is when the moon and the sun get affected and go dark and such, right? That is what happens when Jesus arrives. So Isaiah is talking about the same thing, and the same thing that Enoch was talking about. Okay, and in Job 26, it says the Rephaim, these are the offspring of the fallen angels. So they're hybrid, but they're partly extraterrestrial. The Rephaim are formed beneath the waters, also their inhabitants. This in reference that they live underground in these underground regions. They're formed, they're born, they're created beneath the waters, okay, under the oceans. And in Revelation 20, verse 2, "And he laid hold on the dragon, the old serpent, who is devil and adversary, and did bind him 1,000 years. And he is bound on this earth underground, and he will be released towards the end of days, or at the end of days." Okay, and in Proverbs 9:18, it says, "Has he not known that the Rephaim are there in deep places of the underworld, her invited ones?" And in Isaiah 14:9, it says, "The underworld beneath has been troubled at thee to meet thy coming in. It is waking up for thee, Rephaim, all chief ones of earth. It is raised up from their thrones, all kings of nations." Here's another, 2 Corinthians 11:14, "And no wonder, for even the adversary does transform himself into a messenger of light." So you could even also say in ufology, when they talk about light beings, here we go, got a reference to a light being as well. In Genesis 3:1, "And the serpent has been more subtle above every beast of the field which God has made." So, and I believe all the rest of the verses I read in that video from the other day, so I don't need to repeat those. Those are the new additions. And there was one other one, but it's not worth me finding and reading again. So the Bible foretold it all. So this great big UFO disclosure, at the end of the day, I think if the full raw truth was to come out, it would literally just be the biblical reality that I just spoke about. And maybe all the secrecy is there because the end of days really is approaching. And maybe they discovered this in 1948 when the Greys and all that and the rest of them were released and they got out and they got information from interrogations. Maybe they found out something big was coming, but it's also possible they got lied to by the bad beings. But it's also possible that the good ones may have arrived to help set things straight. There's a lot of alleged stories where this did happen, but at the end of the day, you or I can't prove whether any of that's true. A story where the Greys came to different nations and offered a treaty, and that the human-looking Pleiadians came and offered a treaty that was more peaceful. But anyways, let's not get into that because we can't verify those things. But I think that's probably what the great reality is, and probably why it had all the secrecy was because, it's not because they made it secret because these beings are dangerous. If they're dangerous, they would have taken us over in the last 100 years, right? They would have invaded, attacked, made themselves known. They wouldn't have to be afraid if they're superior, right? So everything, every observable aspect of the UFO phenomenon fits in with the biblical perspective, right? They got released in 1948. Some of them did. The plebs got released. Some of them crashed because you know what? They're not gods. You know what I mean? They make mistakes too. Some of them crashed or got shot down, or their radar messed up with their, or lightning messed up with their guidance systems. Whatever the case may be, they're imperfect beings like us. They crashed. Some of them crashed. Some of them got interrogated, right? And over the years, probably many, many more. And I think that the great secret was eventually discerned. I think they were probably lied to by a lot of the beings, but at the end of the day, when they met enough other beings, the collective consensus was Earth is being watched over by God, essentially. His legions are doing this work for God. And it's a great cosmic setting. I mean, even as I talk about these things, it's like I can almost see the places in my mind off in the cosmos and feel the greatness of it all. Um, and I think at that time, maybe the world governments were afraid because, for all this time, people had this idea that UFO truth would crush religion. But here we have the reality that it verifies one religion. And maybe that would create big wars in the world and all of this and that there. Certain other religions would think that, they're taking it as a threat to their existence and whatnot. But who knows? But at the end of the day, I think they must have found out the great religious truth way back there in the 50s. I don't think it took that long. And they would have known that there's good ones and bad ones over the earth. Okay. And I think they probably pieced together, I think even the people, the humans working in these positions back then would have realized things that I've realized. If any of them had ever read a Bible, I'm sure they would have put one and one together. So I'm giving humans enough credit that in the 1950s, they probably pieced together the Bible narrative in front of their eyes that was playing out. Okay. And I think the reason for the secrecy wasn't because the beings or some of the beings were dangerous, because it hasn't proven to be true over all this time. I think it's because something big was going to happen, which would be the end of days event. And the secrecy would exist to help keep people calm for the 75 years or whatever until that happens. There would be no point saying, oh, we know something big, big cosmic meteor strike's going to hit the earth in 75 years. Everybody gets hyped up, world goes into chaos. No, let's keep some sense and order. And as everybody's alleged, and as I've dreamed, they've been making these underground cities in preparation for the cosmic attack. Whether they built these cities or these are already existing cities, there's lots of alleged stories. Very interesting to think about. But at the end of the day, just UFOlogy comes and fits in with the Bible. Even in the Bible, it says that at the end of days, when Christ arrives, the people, the kings, will be hiding in the mountains, saying, "The rocks fall upon us, hide us." Right? So it gives the impression that people will be hiding in the earth because these meteors are crashing down. So I think that's probably what they were told about by the angels, good or bad angels, and they may have found this out. Maybe they got data logs or they found an alien book. There's probably tons of stuff that went on that we'll never hear about in the public. But all of it's very, very possible. And they probably found that out. And that's a more sensible reason for the great secrecy, if you ask me. It's such a good reason that I would even agree with it. We all lived our lives oblivious to that. But if the government had come out and said, hey, this is going to happen then, everything would be in chaos. You know what I mean? Nobody would have had a normal life for the last 75 years. So I could understand and sympathize and agree on the need for such secrecy. And if they're getting everything prepared, they'll protect people for when that event occurs, whether or not God's going to come and take people away as well, right? They're just building these underground bases and cities in preparation to protect us. That's all fine and dandy. I don't have a problem with that. So we're not at threat from an extraterrestrial invasion. These beings have been here so long, they're so powerful, they could have been done it. You know what I mean? Even the extraterrestrials that landed in that yard in Las Vegas, they never attacked anybody. There's never been a case of UFOs coming down and attacking people. That's really been verified. Um, and there might always be some anomalies here and there, but on the vast whole, out of say 1,000 interactions, you might only have one negative one. This shows you that there's a law and order that's in effect. This shows you, right, like I said, that this good legion is here acting as the watchers. They've always been here since when the earth was created and man was created. We even look like them, most likely. Okay, and created let us create man in our image. Okay, and Jesus came down, took on flesh and blood like us. There might be a lot of human looking beings out there throughout the cosmos. That's the awesome story. That's the awesome revelation. And that's what I think all the secrecy is about. Okay, that's what I think it's about. I think it goes, yes, it's because of my faith, I think that, but everything lines up with the Bible. I don't believe that there's going to be some fake alien invasion and one of these species is going to try and conquer the earth. I just don't believe that. That's just ridiculous. The grays aren't suited for a surface environment in full blown sun. It's not suitable for them. If any of those beings wanted to live on the surface and take Earth as their own, they would have been done it. Okay, so wherever they are there for a reason. And the only plot that makes sense is the one the Bible said. They're being bound down there. And you think about all these new shows, like on Discovery and all that, was like Skinwalker Ranch, and you had Mr. Bigelow, I think his name was. There's some interesting stories with that there, right? And he had a background in like aviation or like space industry, aviation or whatever. And he was a billionaire, and he retired and bought all this huge ranch land and then used this high-tech equipment to, he's kind of like a Benowitz, almost like a Benowitz figure. I'm not being derogatory to him or to Benowitz. But he had an ability to use pretty cool high-tech devices to search for things. That's my point, my comparison. And allegedly there's stuff underground there. Whether that's true, whether it's not true, but all of this plays in. I mean, in ufology, you have the talk that Mount Shasta is hollow and underground. There's all these cities. People go there and instrument readers go off. I've seen some pretty good evidence that in different areas where there's alleged to be an underground base, huge equipment readings go off. Like when they go over this bare desert ground and it just suddenly spikes. There's something mechanical down there operating, right? Tons of stuff like this. And it makes sense if these beings are underground, held underground. So the other thing is when everybody on Earth started testing nuclear bombs, a lot of them are detonated underground and everything. It could have very well stirred some stuff up when they did that. But anyways, that might have also triggered them discovering some things. And who knows? Maybe by them, that's interesting. Maybe the nuclear bomb detonation tests actually helped release them. That would also be quite interesting, right? Interesting. Anyways, I'll take off for now, folks. Thanks for popping by, and thanks, man. Yeah, you got that right. Don't cast pearls before pigs. But yeah, all right, cool. Take care.